What's up, everyone? It's VenomousStare back with another edition of the This Week in Fantasy podcast, the unique podcast where I take a look at my fantasy football league. And this time I have a guest with me, a guest that if the season ended today, he'd make the playoffs in the wild card. It's my boy, CGauch. How you doing, Christian?
You know, I'm always doing pretty good, and it's been quite the best season I've ever had in a long time. And it's just great to see the icing on the cake that Spencer's team is fucking dog shit.
Well, that's right, CGauch. Spencer's having a rough year. Usually, he is the guy that can be counted on to do very well in the regular season. However, he is 3-6. He's not looking very good. It is an absolute long shot for him to do anything but play spoiler this year. And I think a good place to start is me versus Spencer last week. And in this matchup, you really have to note that in a wide receiver-centric team, which is mine, both Julio Jones and his partner in crime, Michael Thomas, were on bye. I still managed to put up 97 points. Tevin Coleman had an awful game, but the recently traded Emmanuel Sanders popped off. Curtis Samuel of the Carolina Panthers caught a touchdown. You have DJ Moore, and I think you are aware of the fact that ever since Cam Newton left, Kyle Allen has just been fantasy genius, fantasy elixir. This guy has really helped every part of the Panthers offense, and Christian McCaffrey has just continued to rake in the stats. If you were to pick an MVP right now, who would
McCaffrey.
it be? I would agree. I
Hands
think it's
down,
McCaffrey too.
No question.
He's an explosive, versatile weapon, and if you look at his impact on his team relative to others, he probably has the most net positive impact out of anyone.
When's the last time a running back had over 1,000 rushing yards? Isn't it Peyton Hillis or something for the Browns back in the day? He was on the Madden cover.
He was on the Madden cover, and then he completely disappeared. If you look at white running backs especially, this is not a position that white guys usually excel at. And not only has McCaffrey been explosive and dynamic, he's stayed healthy, and he has used an insane amount. He has an exceptionally high usage rate. McCaffrey's just been phenomenal this year for the Panthers. You've got to love this guy.
Yep. As the year started, Jackson and me always have discussions on who we would take with our very first pick. And I think for 3 or 4 months, even outside of this season, before the draft even started, I was saying Christian McCaffrey. Just based off his usage.
He does get so many targets as well as so many rushing attempts, and he's very fun to watch. I honestly think he's more dynamic than players like Zeke or Todd Gurley. He's exceptional out of the passing game in the backfield, but he can also get it done on the ground. And it's very entertaining to watch him with these shackles of worthless Cam Newton lifted. Even though Kyle Allen was a guy who spent a season and a half at A&M and then a half season at Houston, wasn't really highly regarded as a guy, an undrafted free agent, he's looked exceptional in the Panthers offense. And I think a lot of Panthers fans are ready to see Cam Newton go. Cam Newton, of course, put on IR last week due to a foot injury persisting. What do you think about Newton versus Allen, CGauch?
I think Allen's been a very good successor, and Cam Newton should be shaken for his job right now.
Yeah, I don't think Cam's coming back. He really should be traded to the team that wants Tua but doesn't get him. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
There are teams out there that really need a quarterback, really want a second chance, really want someone to build around. And Cam Newton, I think, still has value despite the fact that as a Panther, he showed himself to be nothing more than a soft showboat.
I think even right now for next season, I would rather have Trevor Lawrence over Cam Newton.
Wow. This is a guy who won an MVP in 2015, but for all intents and purposes, I think really has been exposed. But I think we can move on for the Panthers and continue to look at this matchup. Jamal Williams really doesn't get that many looks, but he seems to find the end zone more than he has any right to. This guy has found the end zone in the last 4 games, and very frequently, he barely gets any looks. This guy's all about the touchdown.
He has very mediocre stats, and it seems every time he has points, it's just 30 or 40 rushing yards. Right now, he has 39 reception yards and 10 rushing yards, and the touchdown just salvages his scoreline.
Yep. He is. That's a nice little. Whenever your flex gets a touchdown, you can pretty much exhale with
Yep.
happiness.
Successful week.
Right. So whenever I look at this game overall, one of the things that jumps out as me is that Spencer started LaShawn McCoy, who has been getting a lion's share of the Kansas City touches. McCoy got less than 1 point. He was sort of on that exercise bike trying to stretch his legs out. But a couple weeks ago, Spencer actually advised me to drop Damian Williams. And Williams had several bad weeks in a row, but I sort of wonder how much of his usage has to do with McCoy being on that bike and how much of it is actual preference. And you're a Chiefs fan, so I'd like for you to shed some light on this. What do you think about McCoy versus Williams?
I think Williams is definitely the more skilled back. He's the younger back. I think he started off a lot slower than I anticipated. Like, I thought he could have possibly been like a top 5, top 10 running back for fantasy this year if he stayed healthy and could have handled the workload. But I think him suggesting for you to drop the starting or even possibly like second string running back for the best offense in the NFL is stupid advice. I feel like he was trying to play you and get Damian Williams off you.
Now, I've wondered the same thing. You know, Spencer has had high waiver priority this whole year, so you're right. It very well could have been a bait and switch. But did you watch this last Chiefs game?
No.
Okay. Well, honestly, I'm sort of questioning myself and wondering if it was actually Frank Gore who was on the exercise bike, because Devin Singletary got an absolute crap ton of carries in his last week. So I'm sort of questioning myself now, but honestly, it is sort of interesting because honestly, if McCoy didn't have a tight hamstring, the fact that he got overlooked is actually worse for Spencer.
I wouldn't even start. Like, I understand, like, he has, 4 people on a bye, but Jay Ajayi and Latavius Murray, like, I don't even know who I would start out of that group. I would rather start, like, Dalvin Cook's backup to LaShawn McCoy just because, like, it's not PPR, it's a standard league, and he doesn't get a lot of rushing attempts. Like, he just gets, like, those quick passes out of the backfield.
I agree. Maybe I was just tripping about the exercise bike. I could have sworn that I read that somewhere, but looking at both the recent reports, it doesn't appear so. Although if you're a Spencer, you almost wish that, like, yeah, McCoy just tweaked it, had to sit out the game, and he'll be back. Because if, as it stands, if both Singletary and Williams become the bell horse back, that's just going to be great for me.
Yep. I think you destroyed Spencer this week. Well, I mean, I don't think that. I know that clearly, 97-79. It's pretty embarrassing for Spencer, but the Steelers' defense kind of salvaged, like, the pride, I guess you could say. Like, he would have lost like 50-something to 97 if he didn't have them.
The Steelers' defense looked great. Jacoby Brissett, of course, was injured. One of the things that I'm sort of wondering about Spencer is this Robbie Anderson start. Robbie Anderson, to me, is a guy like Sammy Watkins. He's going to get over 15 3 times a year, and people are going to pick him up and start him, and they're going to get burned. So I know Spencer had some bye weeks here, but I was surprised to see that Robbie Anderson is where he went, even though it was against Miami.
I'm surprised at Juju's stat line, honestly. This year he's been like nothing short of mediocre. He hasn't really impressed me at all. And I thought this year like he could be like top 3 receiver in fantasy, especially with AB being gone. But he's one of those, like, he's Sammy Watkins, like Tyreek Hill's like to Sammy Watkins. He's like the same scenario with like AB whenever he was on the team. Like, AB always was double covered, so it kind of opened up things for him.
Well, he was a great option when he was with AB and Roethlisberger, and I guess Bell to some extent. But the Steelers just look like a completely different team, frankly, at this point. They look really bad and confused, and there's virtually no way they'll make the playoffs.
Yep.
All right, I think we can move on from this matchup. We can quickly glance over Kevin, who is 6-3, obliterating Lilly, the worst team in the league. There's not a whole lot to talk about here. Derrick Henry got a couple touchdowns because they ground and pound. And Adrian Peterson, sort of, even though he's ancient, the Washington Redskins are so bad that they'll give Peterson 20 carries and he'll get 100 yards sometimes.
I really want Aaron Jones off Lilly's lineup. I really want Aaron Jones bad. I want to try and like trade Tyreek Hill for him or something. I don't know.
Well, good luck trading with Lily. I don't think she's done a single trade in her history in the league, frankly.
Yeah, I know.
That is really frustrating when about 3 to 4 of the people in the league seemingly don't even check their trades, because if they have someone you want, it's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's like 3 or 4 people don't check their trades. Spencer just spams bullshit dumb trades to me.
It's everyone.
Like,
it's not
I
just
feel like
you.
nobody in this league likes to trade, so it's just like whoever you draft, that's the team you have, and then waiver wire pickups for the season. That's all you have. Nobody trades in this league.
Yeah, the trading, it's not very active. It seems like everybody wants twice as much as they deserve. And CGauch, I've tried to trade with you in the past, and I think you're a little guilty of that.
I agree. I will confirm that I've overvalued my players before, but over these the last couple of years, talking about Jackson, getting more into fantasy, it's just I'm being more realistic now, if that makes.
That's good to hear.
But I definitely used to overvalue my players. Back in the day, whenever I'd have 3 or 4 Colts players and Peyton Manning.
Yeah. When you look at this game, one of the things that jumps out at me is this combo of the Cowboys kicker and the Cowboys defense. It really works out well when the Cowboys play a dog shit team like the Giants. However, if you look at the Cowboys schedule going down the stretch, you have Minnesota, you have the Rams, you have the Pats in Foxborough. So this groovy combo for Kevin is going to fall off a bit because the easy portion of the Cowboys schedule is done. And they do play the Redskins in the very last week, which of course doesn't matter in fantasy. So that could actually bite Kevin in the playoffs, I feel like.
Yeah, I would drop. He has a defense on his bench as well, Tennessee. I'd drop both of them.
Drop both of them, really?
Yeah.
The Cowboys have been decent. They're ranked 10.
Yeah, but he's going to need to pick up a defense that's going to be solid throughout playoffs. And Cowboys defense plays Chicago, the Rams, and Philly in the playoff run.
True, but if I were to start a defense, I wouldn't mind starting them against Chicago because every single week, Big Dick Mitch Trubisky just continues to sink deeper and deeper into a pool of fraudulence. This is a guy that was drafted ahead of both Mahomes and Deshaun Watson and continues to make a fool of himself on a weekly basis. This is a team that got compared to the 85 Bears, a defensive titan team last year, and this year the defense looks a little above average, but the offense is a laughingstock. They line up in shotgun. They run shotgun draws. It's just a big fucking disaster. If you watch Bears games, this is a team that should have had 10 wins pretty easily, but managed to piss it away. What are your thoughts on Big Dick Mitch?
I think he's trash, but I'm also happy that same draft, the Chiefs traded up to 8, and I thought for sure they were going to take Leonard Fournette or Dalvin Cook. And I remember them drafting Mahomes, and I was furious because they didn't draft the running back, but we got Kareem Hunt later on, and Jackson was like, you'll like Kareem Hunt, he's good. And then now, Kareem Hunt just had to deal with his bullshit.
Well,
Can't keep his hands and feet off girls.
Well, I'm glad that you're honest about not liking the Mahomes pick because obviously he went on to become the MVP and just be God tier. And it's nice to see fans own up to them being sort of incorrect about previous predictions because a lot of times I feel like fans sort of like to retroactively look back and be like, oh, no, I always liked that pick. That was great. But
No.
I'm very glad that you own up to that because
I was upset because we Jamal Charles had been hurt and in and out for the last couple of years, and it's we needed a running back so bad, and we took we traded up, and I was like, we're taking a running back. We're getting Dalvin Cook or Leonard Fournette, 2 of the best running backs in the draft, and then we took fucking Mahomes, and I was so pissed. I was like, why the fuck would they do that? Trent Green wasn't still there. Hold on. Who was our quarterback? Alex Smith. He was doing
Yes.
he did well that same year. And I was so mad. Trent Green was quarterback before he got a concussion.
That's old school, yeah. I remember
that's
Trent
a
Green
throwback.
getting concussed.
I forgot about Alex Smith, but Alex Smith had such a good season that year. We traded up to 8, and I was like, yes, we're getting a fucking running back. And they took Mahomes. And I was like, well, Alex Smith's gone. I was like, we're not going to have a running back. Offense is going to be the same. We're going to suck.
Lots of 10-win
out well.
seasons from Alex Smith with some playoff losses. Alex Smith, essentially the poster boy for being a little above average.
Yeah. It's every year we either choke to the Steelers or we get to play the Patriots, and it's always come down to a flag on the last drive that saves the Patriots' final drive, or Gronk gets a 30 or 40 yard catch to get them in field goal range or touchdown range with 30 seconds left to beat us every year. So the Chiefs are notorious for having like a really bad tight end defense. So I think this year the Chiefs can like close it out against the Patriots in the playoffs.
That's interesting because the Pats have looked phenomenal this year. They've
played shit teams all year, and then they play the first good team, the Ravens, and they lose. Like, look at who they've played. They've played horrible teams this season.
The Bills are solid. They've only lost 2 games, the Bills.
Not impressed.
You're not sold on the Bills?
Yeah, not impressed.
The Bills are a team that I predicted to do well in the preseason. They have a solid defense. Josh Allen is a crafty, elusive quarterback. Another guy who stylistically you wouldn't expect like a white guy to do that well, frankly. He sort of plays in a similar style to a college Vince Young or a Mike Vick, not as explosive, but similar style. And
a
he's
white
done
Mike
well.
Vick.
Right. But between Singletary and Gore, they get the job done. The Bills are going to make the playoffs, man, straight up. They're not going to win the division, obviously, but they'll be in the wild card game. Hopefully they can embarrass themselves less than they did last time they were in the playoffs, because that was a fucking laughing stock. But I think we need to move on from Clap 4 and Lily and go to Cam's game versus Jackson, where Cam just really took it to Jackson despite having 2 different people put up goose eggs. Kicker on bye and T.Y. Hilton, who was declared out. McCaffrey just went absolutely ham here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm laughing at Jackson's name. I didn't realize he had changed it. He's like streaming quarterbacks and have more. And then he has Jacoby Brissett on his bench. Cam actually has a solid team. Deshaun Watson, Melvin Gordon, Christian McCaffrey. T.Y. Hilton's out, so I don't know why he started him that week like an idiot.
Just a little bit of shit for brains. I texted him about it.
And he has Sanu on his bench?
I know. I was like, Cameron, you gotta be better. You should have started Sanu over Hilton. And he basically told me to get bent because he was winning by 40. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you're winning by. Start some more bodies, for God's sake.
Check your lineup. Jeez. I feel like he just drafts and doesn't do anything.
Yeah, Cameron, I feel like, is one of the worst managers. And I don't mean that in the mean-spirited or degrading way. But if you look at Cameron historically, first 4 weeks before the buys hit, his team does decent. Then from weeks 4 to 10, his record is horrific.
Yeah.
The guy
this week,
this
week like really shows who's good at like managing their team because there's 6 weeks on bye.
Yeah.
So,
well, Cameron historically is absolutely horrific whenever the bye weeks hit. Oftentimes he starts guys that are just awful. I mean, I know he popped off, but this Preston Williams guy doesn't have any business being on a roster. He hadn't broken 10 all week. Then the Dolphins, who are trying to lose on purpose, play the JETS jokes. He magically fucking reels in 2 touchdowns, puts up 19.2, and Cam's sitting pretty. If you look at the top of Cam's lineup between McCaffrey, Gordon, and Watson, he has a huge amount of points. It's ridiculous. It's a big wall to overcome, man. And when you look at the rest of it, the back half of his team is really weak. But
Golden Tate 5 points. T.Y. Hilton out. Vance McDonald got 9, and then Williams
which he never
does. Got 20. And then he started a kicker on the bye in Chiefs defense.
McDonald is bad and basically had the second best game he's had all year. But remember, Cameron started 2-0 and then lost fucking 6 straight. And then
I did not know that. I didn't realize he lost 6 straight.
He did, and then Cameron will say things like, "Well, I've had bad luck. I've lost by like 5 to 10 every week." And
I'm getting bad matchups. They're scoring more points than me every week. I'm playing the team that's scoring the most points, but I'm also not starting. Basically, 3 players. One's out. One was on IR and happened to put up 20 points. And a fucking kicker on bye. And there's Chiefs defense. Chiefs has always had a fucking shit defense.
And even when there aren't people on bye, you're starting Preston Williams on a team that's trying to lose on purpose. It's like, oh, I'm losing by 5 to 10. Well, yeah, if you have fucking waiver priority over half the league, pick up people that are better than Preston Williams. You shouldn't be starting any Dolphin.
That's one thing, too, with like Weston and Spencer. Their teams are dog shit this season, but they're like, every time I go to pick up somebody on the waiver wire, they already have them. Every time.
That's true. Weston and Spencer both deserve to be given an immense amount of credit for their activity on the waiver wire. And that isn't just something that applies to this year, it's something they've also done historically and consistently.
Cameron, I feel like, has had 1 foot in and 1 foot out like these last couple of seasons. Like, I feel like he just doesn't care. That's why I also, like, in the other league, I wanted to increase the buy-in because then people will fucking care more. Like, $25, like, if my team's doing bad, I'm just like, oh, it's $25. Like, who gives a fuck? Like, I really don't care. Like, I'll just set my lineup every week.
Part of me wonders, like, how much money would you have to increase the buy-in to get Cameron to really care? But, I mean, I don't know. To me, like, Cameron as a person is sort of like a non-competitive, kind-hearted airhead. I just don't really know if it's like how, like, I just don't know if, like, bumping the money up would really make Cameron.
Well, it'd wean out the bitches, and then we can get some real fucking players in here. Like Spencer and Weston, I'm sure would love to up the fucking ante. Just because they go hard on fantasy every season. They're always going hard.
That's true, but would Weston and Spencer want to replace soft competition like Cameron with people like Jackson that are very focused and knowledgeable? That's another thing.
That's what we did in Jackson's league. We've been kicking people out like 2 or 3 every season just because like either they won't set their lineup, like they don't care, like don't want to do a bigger buy-in. Like we want like good ass people, and like it makes it more fun. Like it's hard, like it's harder, yeah, but it's just like. I don't know. I like that. Like, I like having to play against better people and, like, trying to outsmart people.
Well, you have to consider the family factor, too, man. Cameron and Lily aren't going anywhere. And, you know, even though there is something to be said about playing tougher competition, I think that a lot of times it is nice to have a bit of an easy matchup sometimes. I mean, I'm playing Cameron this week and might lose. Cameron actually
I got a freebie on Spencer this week. I'm excited.
Cameron does reasonably well against me, actually. It's sort of weird because Cameron has the worst record in regular season. Spencer has the best record, and I have a winning record versus Spencer and a not so great record versus Cameron. I'm not sure what it is. I think it might be even or I'm down 1, but anyway.
Well, this isn't a fucking family league. This is family football. I'm here to fucking win, not make friends. I'm here for some money.
CGauch is here to win the money, and with that, I think we should move on to his game where he took on Ben, King of Funny Rogers, who despite
free Ben, that's a free dub right there.
Despite a recent resurgence, actually put up a very flaccid 66, and this was a rough week for Ben. Pretty much no one on his team had a good week. Bell, Lindsay, and Mac were all serviceable. But other than that, it was a whole lot of nothing. Allen Robinson defrauded again. It's really hard to be consistent when Mitch Trubisky is your quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The Niners didn't do that well. You know, even though they won, they gave that big play at the end. And looking at your team, Tyreek Hill had a good week. Sony Michel, not so great, but overall you put up 85, which is certainly serviceable.
It's crazy how like I start winning whenever I'm not missing a wide receiver 1 or my RB1. It's crazy.
Well, one thing I was going to ask you about is why did you post that you were putting Tyreek Hill on the trading block if he's really popping off recently? Are you trying to sell high, or do you?
I just want like a stronger running back core. Like I'm fine with having 3 like good running backs. Like Sony Michel's been meh. And then I have Zeke, so I rather trade Tyreek and get like an RB2 or another RB1, and just like try and rotate a wide receiver in like every week.
Okay, what about Devote Freeman? He's had a somewhat of a resurging year.
I'm more of a flex impressed with him yet. Yeah.
Okay. Well, what do you?
I rather have like Aaron Jones, Zeke, and Michelle, and like DJ Moore and like. Debo Samuel or like Randall Cobb or something.
Okay, is like let's just say that like someone else had Aaron Jones instead of Lily. Would they trade Tyreek Hill for Aaron Jones straight up? Is that something you think is a possibility?
If it was like PPR, like half point PPR, maybe, but I don't think so in this league because running backs are so like valued in this league.
Right. So I'm just sort of curious. What do you expect to get back for Tyreek Hill? Like a Joe Mixon? A Fournette? Like, what are you thinking here?
I kind of just like put it out there. Like, I want Aaron Jones is who I want, or like David Montgomery because he's gonna he has like a good playoff schedule.
Okay. Alright, that's interesting. Keep in mind, this CGauch, this is sort of your forum to advocate for what you want, you know, sort of like a live ad, so to speak. But you've had a solid year this year. You've been right on my heels, especially for the past 4 weeks. You've been a game behind. And we've seen Weston starting to fall, and I think that is a wonderful transition to Weston's matchup, where we see Aaron continuing his undefeated ways, putting up 107 and putting away Weston, historically one of the strongest owners in this league. And Weston's top half of his team did very well, but everything south of that went flaccid. You want to talk about this matchup a little bit, maybe hit the high notes?
Weston's team on paper, like Wentz, Robert Woods, like James Conner, should have all had big years. Like on paper, like at the draft, he had one of the best teams after the draft, and I feel like he's having like a season that I typically have. Like I'm like after the draft, I'm like, damn, my team looks good, and then like James Conner's injured. Devontae Adams is like a shit show this year. He's hardly doing anything. Robert Woods is supposed to be like a really solid RB2, and then Cooper Kupp got that ACL injury late last season, and he just somehow bounced back right off of it like nothing happened. And he's still in all of his points. Carson Wentz is supposed to have a good season and be on one of the best offenses, and he's been like, you could say disappointing because he hasn't been like putting up crazy numbers. Aaron's team is just insane. Like he has like Lamar Jackson, who I really wanted, like could have been the best quarterback in the league, and I think he is fantasy-wise right now, or Russell Wilson is. But I really wanted Lamar Jackson. He got Dalvin Cook, who's amazing. Eckler's going to fall off soon because Melvin Gordon's coming back into that offense.
Melvin Gordon's been back for weeks, though. Is Eckler really going to fall off?
He's been back for like 2 or 3 weeks.
Is it really only that short?
I think so.
He's been back for 6 weeks, man. He's only popped off in the last few. Yes, he's been back since... I just looked it up. He's been back since week 5 at Denver. He started playing again. But he's only been good for the last 3 weeks, which is where you probably got that thought.
I feel like he's like getting his like mid-season form back is like what I was getting at. Like he's like hitting his mid-season where Eckler's like been in all this time, like went through training camp playing. Like the first few weeks was like Melvin Gordon's training camp. And now he's like hitting his stride.
I feel that, but Eckler is still a serviceable option considering how many targets he gets in the pass game.
I don't think he will be going into the playoffs.
Okay, but Dalvin Cook has stayed healthy, which no one really expected.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook's really good. I have him in my other league, and I've been very pleased.
Even though the Minnesota Vikings have sort of balanced their offense more, whereas in the early part of the season they were a ground and pound team, Cook has still been getting a ton of looks and is still very scary. Tyler Lockett is a guy that I targeted, and he's ranked 3 right now. Essentially, you take a team in Seattle that likes to run a lot and forces the other team to stack the box. This is their deep threat. This is the main #1 target, and he's been great. And Amari Cooper, #1 target for Dallas, a top 10 guy. He's had quad issues, but at the same time, he's still gotten a lot of looks. Aaron really deserves a lot of credit here with this team.
Yeah, this team's very good. We could see our first undefeated season, possibly. Jackson almost did it last year, but lost. I think Aaron may be able to do it this season.
Aaron does have a very scary team, and Lamar Jackson with all those rush yards scale very differently to pass yards. Pass yards 25 yards for a point, rush yards 10 yards for a point. So a guy like Jackson who just peels off 60 rush yards every single game, that's basically like a built-in touchdown. So especially when you consider Aaron has the #1 ranked defense as well, and the #1 ranked kicker, his team is very deep.
He also has Devontae Parker, who's like the #1 receiver on the Dolphins, which is like a horrible team, but it's still like the #1 receiver of that team. And he has Ronald Jones on his bench. Like that's a good flex back as well. This team's very good.
It's pretty crazy whenever you consider how early he took Todd Gurley. And Gurley is literally ranked 25. Like this is not the same Gurley from last year. But that's just, I mean, that's a nice weapon to have on your bench. Do you think the Rams are overrated? Because personally, I think Sean McVay got way too much credit too quickly. And if you look at the Rams' performance this year, I think they're going to be a wild card team.
Yeah. I think they're overrated for sure. They were fucking good last year, but this year I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is a team that goes 9-7 or 10-6 and probably plays a team like the Cowboys or maybe the Eagles in the first round. I just don't have a lot of faith in this team. The NFL is the biggest copycat league out of any sport. MLB, NBA, NHL, none of those sports can copy and adapt as much as the NFL. And when you watch the NFL and the way that the Rams run their offense, it's a lot of cutesy motion sets. It's a lot of Sean McVay whispering the reads in Jared Goff's ear, another guy who's overrated. And I just don't have a lot of faith in them as a team. I'm not saying they're bad, but it's somewhere between Jared Goff with Jeff Fisher and Jared Goff with Sean McVay where his real talent lies. Somewhere in the middle of that range, I feel like. Josh Jacobs has been solid for Weston.
Yeah, I feel me and Weston will like talk shit a lot to each other. Like I kind of took some shots at him in the like message board in the league the other day, and he doesn't really have anything to say just because his team is so bad this year. But like he's just been like getting screwed over, and I feel like with injuries and like underperforming. Like Devontae Adams should have been like a super good pick, like top 3 receiver. Wentz, Woods, like Curly, Connor.
I know Adams was hurt, but holy shit, he's really only had one good week all year.
Mm-hmm.
I was convinced Weston was going to take Michael Thomas, and I'm just glad he didn't. And talking shit to Weston is weird because he's such a nice, benevolent guy that like you can sort of say your line, and then it's like, well, he's not really going to respond in like a hateful way, and then you're sort of like, okay, I guess let's just stop talking.
He just backs it up with facts, so like you're wrong or something.
All right, so to complete the week, we can just breeze through this one. No fried and the new guys. Russell Wilson pops off in solo carries. Marvin Jones does well too. This is a guy who is ranked 14th and has some big weeks for the Lions, a team that relies heavily on the pass. And overall, this is a pretty goddamn boring matchup.
Mm-hmm. Let's skip this matchup. They both suck.
Fair enough. Let's go to week 10. Alright, so let's start with another boring matchup. No Fried and Matt Stafford. We don't have to go player by player on this one. Although I will say Russell Wilson's matchup with San Fran will be incredibly interesting. But overall, you really have to favor No Fried here over Matt Stafford and friends, who has the lowest point output this year.
Yeah, definitely voting for Mark on this one. Russell Wilson's #1 quarterback in fantasy, but I don't like Monday night games.
Why is that?
I don't know. It just seems like players always underperform.
It is nice that this week's Monday night game will actually be interesting, though. A lot of them are pretty fucking terrible, frankly.
Yeah. It's always like a low-scoring game.
Right, so the other keys of this game, I would say, are that, well, frankly, Lily changes her lineup with Sterling Shepard declared out and the kicker for the Houston Texans on a bye. It's sort of hard for me to sit here and analyze this too hard when there's like a 50-50 shot Lily just doesn't change anything.
Yeah. Her team is like, I feel like if Odell and Numbnuts were connecting on like a better level, like her team would be a lot better. She has Brandon Cooks, Odell, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon. This team.
She has Breeze too on her bench, remember?
Yeah.
See, like this is a problem with Lily, is she never trades, and the fact that she has Stafford, who's completely serviceable, ranked 6th, and Breeze on her team. I get that it's Matt Stafford and friends, and that she reached for Breeze anyway. But you've got to trade one of these guys at this point. Great.
Yeah, she has so many weapons to trade that could like save her season, and it's just, I don't know. It's like Cameron's situation. It's just ironic they're family members, but it's like they just really don't give a shit. Like I'm sure her dad paid the entry fee. Like she probably doesn't even check this shit.
Well, I can't speak to that, but I do know that one of the reasons that Cameron specifically is gun shy about trades is back in 2008. Ben King of Funny Rogers ripped Cameron off for Giants running back Brandon Jacobs and proclaimed himself a fantasy genius. And that's where the nickname the Fantasy Genius
that's
comes
where that
from.
came from.
Okay. After Ben ripped Cameron off for Jacobs, Ben was like, yeah, I look like a fantasy genius getting Jacobs off of Cameron. And ever since then, Cameron essentially ignores or auto-declines all trades. So
yeah, I'll send him some trades, and they just don't get responded. Like, they just sit there for the whole season.
I offered Cameron, Michael Thomas, and Julio Jones for Christian McCaffrey. No response. Left it there for a week. And I'm not saying he should have accepted.
I would have taken it.
I mean, I feel like that's a pretty fair trade, and McCaffrey's god tier, but you just have to, I've always wanted to do this sort of as a thought experiment of, like, you offer the most ridiculously, like, Cameron-friendly trade to Cameron and see if he actually responds. I wonder how favored for him it would have to be for him to respond. I just feel like he's.
What would you have done if he accepted it?
Rode Christian McCaffrey, I guess.
Yeah, you just been like, oh, well, it's not that bad. I gave up Julio and Michael Thomas. It depends on how early in the season that would be. Because if it was like our other league, Julio and Michael Thomas and like the half-point PPR for Christian McCaffrey, it'd be like, oh, man. Like, if it was early in the season, but Christian McCaffrey's having an MVP season. So, like, I wouldn't be, like, too worried about it. It's just, I feel like it'd just be like, oh, I spent 2 draft picks and he only spent 1. That would be like the biggest thing.
Yeah,
a big deal.
I definitely prefer standard scoring over PPR or even half-point PPR. So many of the PPR format styles, the games just get ridiculously out of hand so quickly, and they turn into these absurd shootouts with a lot of variance. I definitely prefer the old style, but I'm going to have to give No Fried the edge here pretty obviously. What say you, CGauch?
For sure, same.
Okay, cool. Let's move on to Clap 4 versus Weston. This is actually a relatively interesting and compelling game. Clap 4, of course, leading his division, a guy that started out very hot, and he's 6-3 still. And Weston, he's getting to the point where he's going to have to win out because he has both you and me ahead of him. And in this league, it is very cutthroat. There are 3 divisions, 3 division winners, and only 1 wild card. And as that stands, you were the wild card, and do you remember if you beat Weston heads up? In my head, I feel like he won. What was the truth?
I think he beat me week 2. But either way, I'm getting a free dub this week against Spencer, so I'm not worried about it. That's one thing I don't like about our league as well. I don't like standard scoring, and I know like you don't like half-point PPR. I like half-point PPR just because like it averages out, like it makes the receivers like on the level of like the running backs, like it makes it closer. But also, I don't like that it's only 1 team from each division. Like only TK, that was stupid. But like I feel like it should be top 2 from each division.
Then half the teams would make the playoffs, though. You don't think that's too easy?
But it's like, top 3 make playoffs and then a wild card game?
Well, it makes the regular season more important, because if half the teams get in, all you have to do is get lucky one week, I sort of like the fact that it places so much stress on the divisions. But I do sort of see what you mean, because frequently in this league, it's like
I'm 5 or what am I, 6-3 or 5-3 right now? 6-3?
Yeah.
And like, what if somebody has a better record than me, or like Weston ties with me? We have a 2-way tie for the wild card, and we're in the same division. Well, like I don't know. I just think it's stupid. Like I think the top 2 from each division should make it.
Funnily enough, a lot of the times I feel like a lot of the good players in this league view the playoffs as, okay, either Jackson, Weston, or Spencer is going to make the wild card. It's almost locked up in a sense. And that's sort of interesting whenever you consider that Jackson's having an off year, Weston's having an off year, and Spencer's not doing well at all.
And maybe I could be like kind of being biased because me, you and Weston, we have the strongest division.
It's funny because if you were to ask Spencer and you were to ask Aaron, they would both claim that they have the hardest division.
Who's in their division? Aaron.
Let's go over to my team. Let's do this together, or go to league rather, and let's just look at the divisions. The division of death got its name because, just like Ben got his name as the fantasy genius ripping off Cameron, the division of death got its name after Spencer claimed it was the hardest division and he was the only team that year to have a winning record. This was before Jackson joined, the year before Jackson joined, if I recall correctly. But let's look at these divisions, and I want to hear your rankings. Just rank them 1 through 3, CGauch.
Ours first.
Okay.
Second is Spencer's. Or, I mean, Aaron's, my bad. And then third's Kevin, Spencer. And then Jackson. Because normally Jackson wins that division, no problem. Or it's normally Jackson or Spencer. Kevin normally has a shit team, and the new guys normally has a shit team.
I think that I would swap 2 and 3 in my rankings. Yeah, because I think
people need to quit changing their names. I don't like this. Like, I don't know who else in Aaron's division. Aaron, Cameron's free.
Aaron, Cameron, Ben, and Mark.
Yeah, Ben doesn't give a shit about fantasy. Like, you could go 2 and 3 on these ones, but ours is definitely the fucking hardest. Like, we have Lily in it, cool, but it's me, you, and Weston.
I think that Weston and I are both top 4. You're a boomer bust, so you're prone to bad years.
Yeah, my team's
the way that you draft,
like every other season.
But I think that you're a threat, even though you have somewhat of like a high risk approach. But I think the division of death is solid. Spencer's consistently good. Jackson's consistently good. And Clap 4 is usually somewhere between average and above average. And he has his... The thing I like about Kevin is he's not an idiot. He's unorthodox. Like, Kevin will do some weird old school shit.
He'll draft Mahomes in the first round.
Yeah.
Like with his,
and it'll blow up in his face sometimes, and it'll look good others. And the thing about Sam is, even though he's usually a little average to below average, he's relatively active. But if you look at fucking Aaron's division, Aaron usually drafts well but fucks up managing. Mark is a little above average. Cameron's borderline clueless. And
Ben does not care anymore.
Like, I give
makes
Ben
the
credit.
$25 payment. He normally is pretty good. He's normally solid.
I give Ben credit. Every person I have on Twiff says that Ben has checked out. That Ben is.
Yeah, Ben checked out last season. The year before last season. Maybe.
The other people I have on will go even further. They'll say that Ben has basically been mentally AFK for the past 2 or 3 years. I give Ben credit. I think he still cares. Yeah, that's sort of what I say is, like, Ben has been a good owner for an extended period of time. But when I look at talent, I think that the Division 3, etc., is the worst. And you can say, well, you and Lily, if you look at your win-loss, might be lower than some of these other teams, but I think that our division is difficult. If you look at
I think if you look at my team and think I'm a shit fantasy owner, then you're a fucking idiot. Because every year I either have like my first or second round picks injured, and then I have like the most points scored against me almost every season.
I do think that we can agree that overall, if you look at this year's skill level team-wise compared to like 3 or 4 years ago, the league has definitely been consistently improving and becoming more competitive.
Yeah. Adding Jackson was big just because like he's one of the better like fantasy players like I've played with. He's having like an off season.
Agreed. Definitely.
Hell, he went 14-1 last season.
All right, so let's jump into the matchups for the following week. We've already done a couple, but I think we can jump into you versus Spencer, which is a great rivalry. This is probably the rivalry where the most shit gets talked. I feel like there's a lot of animus in this rivalry.
It's a free W for me this season. Spencer's team is shit. He's a fucking idiot. He sucks at fantasy.
Do you think that this is something that will continue on to next year, or this is sort of a one-off aberration for Spencer?
Will continue on until he dies. I will never lose to Spencer again.
That's a bold prediction, CGauch. Spencer consistently.
I will admit, like every year, I always do like the half point PPR draft, and then I'll go in. It's always the same day, and the half point PPR draft is like 2 or 3 hours before, and it finishes like 20 minutes before our draft. And then I come in here thinking, oh, I'm going to take this receiver, and oh, he's going to like put up PPR numbers, and then I'm like, oh, well, it's standard, and I always undervalue my running backs.
Every year. 7 years straight, CGauch.
No, I won in 2011.
I love it.
I won my first season.
I fucking love it. So if we peek at this matchup, one thing that jumps out at me, Josh Allen is playing terrible Cleveland, but Kyler Murray is playing Tampa Bay, a notoriously soft passing defense, so both the quarterbacks should do relatively well. Saquon's playing the awful Jets. He should have a week. And you're starting DeVote, who's coming off of a bye. Both of these teams are very top-heavy, I feel like. They both have a very good top three. What do you think about that?
I think my fourth is pretty solid as well.
That's true.
Tyreek Hill in there.
Tyreek Hill definitely better than Tyler Boyd.
Saquon's the only good player on this team I'm looking at right now.
What about Murray? You're not feeling Murray?
Dog shit.
Basically, his whole season's production has come from the last 2 weeks, I guess.
Yep, trash. Juju, not doing very well.
Cooper
He kind of
Kupp's
put all
good,
of his.
though.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp has done very well. He bounced back from that ACL injury like it was nothing.
Nothing. DJ Moore has been damn good since Cam Newton got fucking hurt / benched.
Yep.
It's sort
I've been very happy.
It's funny to me as a Panther fan to see the difference between a Cam Newton-led offense, who's supposedly this really talented, dynamic player. I mean, as far as I can tell as a Panther fan, the most creative and intelligent thing Cam Newton does is design a post-game wardrobe. This guy, he slings it around with pathetic accuracy. He has been less effective running every year since his MVP season. I'm just not big on Cam Newton at all. And seeing Kyle Allen pop off really makes me happy as a Panther fan. And it has made DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel's value skyrocket.
Yeah, I feel like it's very refreshing for you to have a quarterback perform well.
Well, and not only that, but have a quarterback stylistically that
competent.
It's more of a pocket passer. It's not like we have this offense where the quarterback can't throw for shit, and he makes all the receivers look like retards, and we're gonna run the option and the QB sneak, and it's gonna sort of work. The Panthers had a borderline dysfunctional offense, so I like the fact that Allen is in and is probably going to improve. And you have old Diamond Dan Bailey facing his former team in Dallas this week.
Yep, grudge match.
That'll be interesting. The Cowboys, of course, were paying Dan Bailey a ton of money to underperform and straight up cut his ass a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I will say I'm very happy that I was on the fence about starting Phillip Rivers against Oakland, and I was just I don't know, because Kyle Murray, he let me down. He hurt me. He's hurt me too many times where I've started him over Phillip Rivers, and I was just you know what, I'm going to stick with him. Playing Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's secondary is trash.
Yeah, awful.
And then Phillip Rivers ended up throwing 3 picks, so I was very pleased with that.
Well, Rivers figures out a way to underperform no matter who he plays. And Kyler Murray, to me, this is a typical CGauch pick. High risk, high reward, flashy player, big name. And he's been top 10 for you this year. This has been a guy who has been a big part of your successful season. So I love to see you start him versus a flaccid Tampa Bay defense. And overall, I edge you this game. I think that Murray will do better than Allen. Elliott is going to do well. I think Barkley will also have a big game. But if you look at the bottom half, I give you an advantage, and I think you'll win by about 8 to 10.
More than that. You gotta bump that number up.
What's your number, CGauch? How big
20.
are you going to win by? 20! A droopy 20.
Yep.
I love the confidence.
Murray's going to have a 30-point game.
Well, hopefully Zeke Elliott runs a rough shot over Minnesota because the Cowboys really need that win.
Tyreek's going to have 2 touchdowns, hopefully, against Tennessee. All I know is Spencer's dog shit. His team is fucking trash. I never want to hear from him again.
I love the rivalry between you. It has the sort of visceral hatred that UTOU has. I mean,
and it's I could me and Weston will talk shit to each other, or he'll hate on my team, I'll hate on his team, and it's I could make an argument for Weston's team, oh, this guy's underperforming, that guy's hurt, this guy's underperforming. It's look at Spencer's team, it's just shit. Josh Allen at your quarterback, he could have been all right. You have LaShawn McCoy. Zach Ertz is probably his best player behind Saquon. That's it. Juju's not doing shit this season.
Well, and Ertz has a bye, too. You caught a big break there.
I wouldn't have even been worried about it. If Juju's having the season of his life and Ertz was in, I would still be winning this game by 20. Spencer's team sucks.
Well, and considering this is Saturday morning, I think this is a pretty accurate estimation of who Spencer's going to start. It should be worth pointing out that Juju is on the bench and so is McCoy, but he's probably going to bench both those guys. Juju was awful last week and he's questionable. McCoy got virtually no looks last week, so it's worth mentioning, but I don't really think it's going to have much impact.
Yep, I agree.
So CGauch predicts himself to win by 20. You love the confidence there, especially against a historically powerful team like Spencer. We're going to head over to... What matchup should we do next, you think?
Yours and Cameron's, because he's up by 19 right now.
He is. Cameron, of course.
But he's still probably going to lose.
Cameron had Melvin Gordon put up 15 at halftime. I was scared he was going to drop a 30 bomb on me, but he cooled off in the second half, and it's a scary but manageable 19.3 that he put up against me. I'm really worried about the fact that McCaffrey is still going to play. And if we look at my team, Tom Terrific is on bye, so I had to pick up Daniel Jones. He is playing the JETS jokes. And George Kittle could potentially not play. So, CGauch, give me your thoughts on this matchup, and I'm going to follow you.
Looking at your team's actually really good. I didn't realize, I forgot you had Kittle as well as Julio. How did you get... I don't get how you got Julio, Michael Thomas, and George Kittle.
Julio 10th overall, Thomas 14th because Weston drafted James Conner.
And then what? Kittle super late in the third.
Kittle in the third.
I don't know. That's really good. I like Chris Carson a lot because he's like the big workhorse back in Seattle, and he's having a really good season.
And they run a lot.
I would start Damian Williams over Singletary though.
Really, Singletary got so many looks last week, and Cleveland's defense is pretty soft. It is a good problem to have,
also
though.
It's like you're already probably going to win this game, so you could just go with the Damian Williams upside on the Chiefs offense.
Is Mahomes going to be back?
Yeah, he's starting this week. And then Kittle, I'm pretty sure isn't playing this week.
Yeah, I've been looking at him. It's been saying game time decision over and over, and it still says that. I picked up Ebron as a backup. He's sort of a boomer bust panhands guy. And I want everyone in this podcast to know that CGauch coined the term panhands, and it's something I still use to this day. A brilliant piece of dialogue from CGauch. But he's playing fucking Miami.
I think it was in reference to Cameron.
It was. It absolutely was. 100%. He'd go, Cameron would drop a ball. Panhands. Ding!
No, he wouldn't drop it. It would ricochet off his hand so hard. He had no finesse. It would just be like ping.
Cameron was never known. Cameron was never known for his hand-eye coordination.
Very true. Very true. He is doing powerlifting now, though, so it's.
He's strong. Don't get me wrong. Cameron is a strong motherfucker.
I feel like it's that retard strength in him, though. It's somewhere in there.
That's fucking great.
Dude, did you see? Sorry to sidetrack here, but talking about Cameron's weightlifting, did you see fucking Wiley's new locker room, doghouse weights?
Yeah.
Did you see the weights they just got?
Was it you that posted, "This is what happens when you lose 20 games in a row with all new equipment"?
No, that was Darrow. Yeah, on his Snapchat.
Yeah,
I was like, that is insane.
Yeah, dude. It is so funny to me. Coach Sandy Penis just gets to beat up on 3A teams with impunity for years and years. And as soon as they get shithoused a couple years in a row, all of a sudden the fucking scuffed duct tape equipment isn't good enough anymore.
Yeah, that pissed me off. I saw that. I was like, no fucking way they got all that stuff.
Oh, brand new. It's not like they bought it secondhand, you know?
I know. It's all engraved Wiley Bulldogs.
Just ridiculous. Crazy. But anyway, I think that Singletary will pop off against Cleveland. He got an insane amount of looks last week. And Daniel Jones, I don't have much confidence in at all. Would have never touched him if he wasn't playing the jokes. The guy turns over a lot. But I think he'll do pretty well. Overall, even though I'm already at a disadvantage because of Gordon, I have to look at my team and say that I have more depth than old Cameron, and I have the advantage.
I think if I would give you the advantage right now, but if T.Y. Hilton was playing and wasn't out, then I would give it to Cameron. But he's not. He has 4 people on bye, and he's not gonna. I don't think he's going to drop Vance McDonald for a receiver on the waivers. So I think he's just going to leave Ty in the lineup so that that zeroes out a slot for you. But Christian McCaffrey, his team's going to start winning some games because Melvin Gordon, McCaffrey, once T.Y. Hilton comes back in I think 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, he needs to start the Bears defense over the Chiefs defense.
Even though they're playing Tennessee.
Yeah.
Interesting. Another thing to look for this game is both Julio Jones and Michael Thomas are back after being on bye.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of interesting.
They're playing each other too, though.
Yes.
And it's don't they have the score record against each other? Like the Saints and the Falcons, don't they always have the highest scoring game every season?
I'm not sure, but considering how bad both those defenses are, I expect both of these guys to get over 10.
It's at New Orleans, though, so I don't know. It may not be as high as if it would Atlanta, because Atlanta plays in a dome, so it's going to be.
New Orleans plays in a dome too, the Superdome.
Do they really?
Yeah, the Superdome. It's the one that got flooded during Katrina.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's going to be a high-scoring game. That's going to be very good for Julio and Michael Thomas.
I think if Kettle plays, I have this locked down. But
I think you have it just regardless because Ty is putting up zeros anyways.
And you're right about Cameron. The fact that Sanu is on the bench really hurts him.
Yeah. Well, Sanu's on a bye. Dorsett's on a bye. He's not. If he drops Chiefs defense and puts Bears in the lineup and picks up a wide receiver for that open slot he'll have, then maybe. But I don't see him doing that. Very smart.
I was really expecting my game versus Spencer to be a loss because I had Jones and Thomas on bye. If you remember last season, I had five players on bye versus Spencer, as well as a couple injuries, and I still managed to win.
Yeah, he sucks.
So it's very interesting to note that anytime I play Spencer, no matter who's on bye, I've been doing well recently. You know, I was talking to Spencer the other day, and the motherfucker told me I would bet any amount of money, that's his words, verbatim, that I have a winning record versus you. But he was wrong, even without the playoffs.
You should have taken that bet.
Yeah, it's sort of tricky when someone says, "Oh, any amount of money," you're like, "Okay,
any amount.
500." They're like, "Wait a second."
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, well, not that much." I was thinking of $1.
Alrighty, so do we have any other matchups left to go over? Did we
Jackson's? We didn't go over Jackson's or the new guys.
Okay.
All Jackson's playing Aaron this week, so.
Yeah, and Jackson's starting Jacoby Brissett, who's a game-time decision. That's sort of interesting. I guess he's playing Miami. But
he would probably swap for Garoppolo.
Fair enough. Aaron is heavily favored here, though, as 9-0, a team that's firing on cylinders. His fucking flex is already guaranteed 11. You look at Aaron's team, and it's real scary. His receivers are going to get 30.
No weaknesses.
The receivers are going to get 30. His running backs are going to get about 25. Lamar Jackson's playing Cincy. Oh my goodness, this is brutal.
Though.
Fair.
I think Jackson needs to start Garoppolo over. Well, I don't know. It's against Miami.
It's an illness though for Jackson. He has the fucking cold or some shit, not like a legit injury.
Oh. Yeah, he'll be fine then. Kamara. He has Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin's badass. If Lockett or Amari has an off game, because Gurley's not going to be he's not going to put up a ton of points, but Dalvin Cook against Dallas may have a solid game. I don't know, but he's definitely heavily favored to lose this right now.
Yeah, Godwin has been very good this year, arguably better than Mike Evans. I mean, the Bucks just air it out, and Jameis doesn't give a fuck how many times they intercept it. He's gonna keep throwing it hard and throwing it deep.
He's Evans is the number 1 receiver in fantasy right now, and then Godwin's number 4. Just because Godwin's had these last 2 weeks, he's only put up 10 points total. 12 points total these last 2 weeks. Come on, Mike Evans kind of took over these last 2.
Yeah. And when I said he's arguably better, I was sort of considering average draft position and whatnot.
Yeah.
People were
I got him in the 8th round, I think.
Yeah, people were taking Mike Evans in, picks 10 to 20, whereas Godwin fell way later, and he's been nearly as good. Galladay has also been a solid option. Yeah. But I mean, Aaron's receivers are just as good, and they're just as big of a part of their team's offense, so I think you have to favor Aaron.
Yeah. They've been more consistent.
I think drafting Cam Newton really bit Jackson in the ass.
Yeah, me and him both liked him for this season. I really wanted Lamar Jackson. Fucking Aaron took him the round before I was going to take him too. I remember that. I was like, oh, I can get him next round because I don't know. I thought Lamar Jackson was going to be the number one quarterback this season for fantasy. But he's number 3, which is like obviously still really fucking good. But I remember Aaron swooped him from me like right before.
Well, and the Ravens have looked great too. It's not just fantasy. So, CGauch, to conclude the video, let's hear your 3 division winner picks and the wild card pick. This year is less competitive than usual as far as the disparity between division winners and the followers. But I want to hear who you think are going to make the playoffs regardless.
I think the placements everybody's in is going to stay the same. Other than I don't know, maybe me and you could swap if you start losing. Who do you play week 11? I play Weston week 11.
I play Lily.
I play Lily week 12. I play you week 13.
You were going to run through our divisions again, and then the final week is an out-of-division game. And then you play Kevin Clap for Bacon, who's very good. And I play Mark like I do every year, so I have the advantage in the final week. But
I think me or you will be first or second, and week 13 is going to decide who gets first.
Okay. So either you or one of us is going to get wild card 1 division, and you think Clap 4 and Aaron are going to win. Obviously, Aaron's going to take that bottom division.
Yeah, I think Aaron's already secured it.
It's
Kevin's kind of secured his just because I don't know, Jackson's team isn't that good this season, and he's having to stream running quarterbacks.
It's sort of more boring than we would be used to because even though Jackson is theoretically in striking distance. If you look at the bottom 2 divisions, the division winner has a winning record, and the number 2 team is not even above 500. And if you look at the wild card, it's 4 and 5, and then you, who's 6 and 3, right behind me. So it's pretty much guaranteed, I think.
Also, I would like to point out that Jackson has the second most points scored against him this season.
892, yeah.
Behind Spencer.
Yeah.
But Spencer's team sucks dick, so he shouldn't even have that many wins.
And if you look at points scored, Clout 4 and I are virtually tied, and then Aaron has about a 200 more. So Aaron has had a really good season. Now, I know that this is sort of way advanced in the future, sort of high-level shadow boxing, but is Aaron going to be defeated in the playoffs? Because everyone knows he's making the playoffs. Do you think he has any chance of losing in the playoffs, or is he too good?
Depends on who he plays. If I play him, then yes.
So you think he's going to beat me and Clap 4, but not you?
Well, right now, if I'm the wild card, I play him.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So all gusto aside, do you honestly think you could beat Aaron?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm notorious. If I make the playoffs, the teams I play always score the least amount of points.
The CGauch curse, baby.
Mm-hmm. Dalvin Cook will have Dalvin Cook has a very good playoff schedule though, so Dalvin Cook will have a good game.
Yeah, Seattle.
But I feel like
Detroit,
that's a given no matter what.
Cook has been good. When I look at Aaron's team, that's one of the main things that stands out to me is that
Zeke plays the Rams, Hill plays Denver. Who does Kyle Murray play? Cleveland.
That's a good matchup.
Who does Sony Michel play? Sony Michel plays Cincinnati.
Ugh.
I don't know. I think if I make the playoffs as the wild card, I'm beating Aaron.
I feel like when your teams make the wild card, it's very intimidating. You're definitely one of these exceptionally dangerous boomer bust type teams that people are scared of, even if they don't respect you as an owner or respect the style you play. They have to be afraid of you because your teams can pop off and go crazy. I just saw your fucking post. Free Spencer this week. Really nice to have a bye and not have to stress about it. Thanks for the free W. Spencer has been put on notice, okay? this is a must-win for Spencer in my eyes, not just mathematically in terms of him making the playoffs, but for ego's sake. Yes, I mean, he really doesn't like you. He really wants to take the W off of you.
Hey, I mean, just be better. Quit being shit. Quit sucking at life, Spencer.
Spencer's probably not going to make the playoffs, almost certainly. So this is going to be his Super Bowl, essentially, to beat you.
Yep. This is, if he beats me this week, that's like, it doesn't end my season, but it's just like his season was a success.
All right, CGauch. So to close the video, I want to hear, what percentage chance do you give yourself to beat Spencer?
99.9.
Wow.
Anything is possible.
So CGauch virtually guaranteeing victory versus the most winningest regular season player in this league.
Yep.
All right. I'm VenomousStare. Make sure you sub for more. It's been a great episode with CGauch. Have a good day.